Okay, so I as you've I think I'm a month in to being at Blue Mountain Community Church, and I love to tell stories. I don't know if you've picked that up. I really love stories, but I really like stories that have participation. It's just something I kind of grown accustomed to whenever I've told stories, because I kind of grew up learning and teaching and telling stories to kids, and I would always get them to participate with stuff. So what I want you to do is just pretend you're a kid, okay? It would help me. It'll help you. Just pretend you're, what's the best age? 10, 12, 3? I don't know. But by the way, my daughter Mercy, she was like, you've heard of the terrible twos, right? It's not true if you don't remember, because my parents don't remember how awful I was as a kid. They forget. They've forgotten all about it, which is wonderful, because it's a good sign for me that I will one day forget how my children have behaved. But my daughter Mercy, you haven't met her yet, but she like skirted through the terrible twos, no terribleness, and then came into like the awful threes, and it's like, maybe you're gonna miss those awful threes too, until this week. So she's found the terrible threes. Anyway, that's a sidebar. If you're watching, Mercy, I apologize. I'm sorry. But what I need you to do is we're going to start off this morning. I just need to tell your partner, whoever's sitting beside, or even kind of across the aisle, I just need to say the words, "Did you see it?" Can you try that? Did you see it? Okay, so that was good. It's maybe maybe you're feeling a little uncomfortable. Maybe you feel like, I don't know how I want to do this, Amos. So we'll try again. But pretend like you've actually seen something incredible. Okay, so did you see it? Did you see it? Now try this, add this in. If you're at home, do the same thing. Say, did you hear it? Did you hear it? Did you see it? Now you can just mix those two phrases in. Go. Good. This is great. This is good. Good participation. Good job, everybody. So you have to imagine, at this point in Mark's narrative, in this point in Mark's story, Jesus starts, he gets baptized, he goes into the wilderness, he's tempted by the devil, he comes out and he starts healing and doing things, and these radical leaders, like Jesus was early presenting, that he was kind of a different kind of prophetic voice. Yeah, it got people's attention. But it really wasn't until kind of in the second and leading into the third chapter of Mark that the word of Jesus, the idea of Jesus, the person of Jesus, started to spread like fire in dry grass. And the words of Jesus was spreading all around, not just Galilee, not just Capernaum, not just the northern part of the Sea of Galilee, but it's spreading all across this Judean world. And so the people in those towns and those villages, did you see it? Did you see it? Did you hear it? Were you there? I was there. I saw Jesus. I saw him heal that man. I heard him forgive sins. I have seen him break Sabbath more than once, more than twice, and word was spreading all around. Some were saying, definitely, this guy is a rabbi. Some were saying, this guy is a prophet. Some were saying, this guy is definitely a healer. He's a teacher. He teaches like nobody else we've ever heard. He has command over the scriptures like we've never heard before. And there are others saying, yes, and this guy is a threat. Already, in the first couple chapters of Mark, the Pharisees, the religious leaders, the scribes, the people who were kind of at the top echelon of this cultural group said, this guy, Jesus, he is so well known already. He is a threat. And we need to do something about him. And so they start conspiring with some of the aristocracy, the Herodians and others who were kind of favored by Herod Antipas. And they said, we can't do anything about it ourselves. We're going to team up with the most unlikely of friends to take out this guy named Jesus. But it didn't matter. It was too late. The foundations of this world, this culture, were starting to shake. And people all around, did you see it? Did you hear it? Well, the tension, Jesus knew. This shaking, this underworld, the evil of the underworld starting to crack. It was happening very quickly. And he knew that he needed to kind of, you see this all the time in the Gospels. Jesus comes into the crowd and then he kind of pulls out of the crowd again. And so at this point in Mark's Gospel, Jesus says, you know what, guys? Says to his disciples, some of his followers, says, we need to find a place to go. The tension's kind of raising up. The disciples say, yeah, absolutely. We saw the Pharisees in league with Herod's guys. I get it. And I can imagine they're kind of a little bit excited about this, that they're a part of kind of a political revolution. And I can imagine they're probably a little bit afraid. And so Jesus says, we need to find a place to go. And I can imagine Peter, who's becoming kind of the spokesperson of the group, says, I've got a place. I know a place on the lake, quiet on the lake. There's some trees that shelter this kind of this little nook, this little cranny. We can hunker down there, and no one will see us, and we'll be fine. Jesus says, okay, let's make way to that place. And so they start walking towards the lake, the Sea of Galilee. And as they're getting closer, one of the disciples, I can imagine, just kind of tugs on Jesus' tunic. Lake in front, man tugging behind. Jesus says, yes. He says, I don't think we're going to be alone, Jesus. And off in the distance, a plume of dust is raising off of the earth. And there's a sound of rumbles and grumbles and voices. And if you're sitting here, if you're at home, what I need you to do is just like slowly stomp your feet and make a murmuring sound if you can. Beautiful. Now imagine a big plume of dust coming off the feet, off the earth. And the disciples says, people, Jesus, they found us. Jesus, this is why I love Mark's gospel, because it's so nuanced. You're not quite sure what Jesus is actually saying. He turns to probably Peter and he says, get me a boat. Now this could be an escape. This could be a pulpit. We don't know, but I can imagine Jesus saying, Peter, get me a boat. Peter says, sure, like how big? What do we need? Where are we going? Are we going across the lake? Jesus says, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do with it. Just bring me one. Well, as this is happening, Peter goes to fetch his boat. This crowd of people, the biggest crowd that had gathered to date, from all across the land, from the north, from the south, from the Decapolis, the Greek cities, from all the way down in the parts of near Jerusalem, these people had come because they wanted to see and hear Jesus in action. Now in this crowd of people, this is a mixed crowd. You have country bumpkins, and you have city people, and you have rich, and you have poor, and you have old, and you have young, and you have children, and you have sick and diseased and eager and questing, all kinds of people. So many people. Well, Peter brings the boat back, and Jesus doesn't hoist the sail to escape. He probably gets inside the bow and stands up so he can look at these people, because they're coming in like a wave, an inland wave, pushing him further and further and jostling him actually into the sea. He had nowhere else to go. He stands up on the bow and he starts doing what he does: preaching, teaching, talking of the kingdom of God, and he heals the people that come to him, one after another. You can imagine the fervency, the desperation of these people, even the danger of them pushing their way through. And then somewhere in there, a man comes, and I can imagine a man kind of bringing his friend with him. He says, Jesus, Jesus, please help my friend. To look at them, the man's got his arm around this other man, kind of hunched over, kind of filthy and growling. And Jesus, he comes to the bow of the boat, and Jesus kneels down, and he lifts the man's face, and he looks into his lifeless, blank eyes. The man is possessed. He's demon-possessed. And so Jesus looks at him, and he says to the demon, he says, get out. And I can imagine the man kind of shrieking and convulsing as the demon is kind of wrestling its way out, and Jesus says, out. And the demon leaves, the man is restored to health. This is not the first time Jesus has cast out a demon-possessed person or cast a demon out of somebody. And so the astonishment of the crowd, they bring more and more. odd that there are so many possessed people in a crowd. But as they come, Jesus, without any effort at all, casts the demons out, one at a time. Well, the demons, they look at Jesus and they say, "We know you, Jesus. We know who you are." Some sort of a power play. They think they could subvert Jesus and his power. They say, "We know who you are. You're God's son." And Jesus says to the demons, he says, "Quiet. Don't say another word about it." The foundations of this underworld were cracking before the world on top. The world that we can see with our eyes and hear with our ears was changing, but the underworld knew that someone had come that had power over it, that his kingdom was emerging from beneath, and there's nothing they could do to stop it. Well, the crowd dissipates. They leave. They go home. The sun starts to set, and the disciples, I can imagine, after a day of this, they're tired. They're maybe a little confused. They're worn down. This is new to them. And Jesus turns to them and says, No, we're not done. We have somewhere else we need to go. Oh, what? It's like this. Who's ever interned before? You know, like you're working for free. Like it's hard work. You're like driven into the ground. These disciples like, oh, really? Like, okay, where Jesus? Where are we going? Jesus, we're going up there. We're going to the mountain. What? Yeah, we're gonna climb that mountain. It's our last stop for the day, climbing up the mountain. All right. Now here's where I need you. This is maybe even the most uncomfortable thing I'll ask you to do today. I just need you to pretend like you're climbing a mountain. If you're at home, you just climb up a mountain. Now it's not a steep mountain. You're not like spelunking or whatever with the pitons and the ropes and stuff. It's kind of a gentle slope, but it's going to take your breath away a little bit, okay? Because it is kind of a hike. And so I can imagine the sun is setting behind, casting this golden radiant light across this green hill sloping up. And Jesus is in the front and he's walking slowly, methodically. And his disciples are behind, maybe a little bit begrudgingly. And I can imagine when Jesus gets to the top of this mountain, the early stars are kind of poking out of the night sky, and a cool breeze is blowing through his beard, and he looks across at all of these men now standing in front of him. And it's not just 12, there's several men, and maybe probably even some women among them. And he's looking at them, and they're panting, and they're sweating, and they're a little disgruntled, and they're a little bit tired, and they're a little bit confused. And Jesus looks at them, this ragtag bunch of overlooked nobodies. Jesus is looking and he doesn't see any warriors. There's no general kings. There's no princes or princesses. There's no rich merchants filled with money bags. There's no wealthy people with prestigious names attached to them. There's no scholars. There's no PhD professors. There's no CEOs. They're a bunch of fishermen, day laborers, near peasants, zealots, normal, everyday, working class people, the people that their society had completely overlooked. And Jesus says to them, he says, "From you, I'm going to choose my closest followers. From you, I'm going to choose my apostles, my sent out ones, the ones who are going to be kingdom shapers, kingdom makers." Now, this is not an accident that Jesus is standing on this mountain. Matthew and Luke, they refer to this a little bit more directly, but Mark throws out this very subtle hint that Jesus, like Yahweh in the wilderness, like Moses on top of Sinai, is overlooking the new, reconstituted, reformed nation of Israel. This new kingdom emerging on earth for a purpose, to bring God's redemptive story down and up and in and through his people. And Jesus doesn't choose the most prestigious. He doesn't choose the most obvious. He doesn't choose the most popular. He chooses the overlooked. It's not a surprise. He chose the sin-sick Levi. He chose the burdened person in the synagogue. And now he's choosing Peter. As the girls read earlier, Peter, who probably became kind of the spokesperson. James, son of Zebedee. John, the brother of James, nicknamed the son of Zebedee. Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, the tax collector. Thomas, the twin. James, son of Alphaeus. Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, and Judas, who would later betray him. And this moment in time, this beautiful, quiet moment, where out of these big cluster of disciples, Jesus chooses his 12. He makes a very, very strong and powerful statement that the work of the kingdom is beginning. In a very, very real way. And what they were supposed to do, Jesus says, as he calls them out, they would be with him. He would send them out to proclaim the word and give them authority to banish demons. Give them authority to reach down into that underworld that assumed power over the world and said, no. God has shown up, and he's re-correcting and reorganizing everything. This morning I asked, what does God see when he sees you? If Jesus was to call you up onto the mountain, and you were to stand face to face with him, and he calls out your name, what does he see when he sees you? The world overlooked these men, but Jesus saw something far more profound. He didn't see just fishermen, he saw tenacity. He saw strength. He saw courage. He saw hard-working men who go to the ends of the earth to do their job. He didn't see just radical zealots. He saw passion. He didn't see tax-collecting sinners. He saw accountability. Jesus looks past our outward exteriors and sees who we really are. And like a cookie, we all have a part to play. Every one of those disciples had a purpose to the whole. You couldn't have 12 Peters. Thankfully, that'd be just one loud, shouting, flip-flopping bunch of people. You can't have 12 Thomases who are doubting and skeptical. You can't have 12 radicals who are just enraged with passion. No, we're all called, each and every one of us. No matter our station, our age, how much money we have, how powerful we are, how insignificant we feel, how overlooked we may feel, we're all called to be a part of this emerging, inbreaking kingdom. And we are all given this mandate, not designated as apostles as the disciples are, but to be sent out into the world, to see and be and act and be filled with the Spirit of Jesus, to be his light and witness in the world. So my encouragement to you, Blue Mountain, particularly in a time of transition, particularly when the future is uncertain, particularly when you may feel totally overlooked, that you did your thing, your day is over. Maybe you feel you're too old. You're too out of touch with today's culture. Maybe you feel like you're a Luddite. You're too out of touch with technology. Maybe you feel like you're too young. I don't have anything to contribute to this thing. Maybe you feel like you're too worn down. You're too tired. You're too poor. You're too weak. Whoever you are, wherever you are, you fit the bill to be a follower of Jesus. You fit the bill to be working and living in and through him. Let's pray. Jesus, I thank you that you call the overlooked. Jesus, I thank you that you have the authority to banish demons. You have the authority to reach into the underworld and turn it upside down. I thank you that you came to the earth to do just that very thing, to reorganize the systems and the power structures that plague and prevail our everyday living. I thank you that your gospel isn't one of the elite, but it's the one of the everybody. And I thank you that you reach out to people like me, that you call out people like me, broken, insecure, unsure, overthinking. I thank you that you reach out to every single one of us, and that you don't overlook a single solitary person. I thank you that we've been invited into this new story that you're telling. The continuation of an old story of you coming to earth to redeem humanity through your work and your life and your love. And I thank you that we can participate in that. And so I pray that even now, if we're feeling overlooked, there's people listening and they feel like they don't have anything to add, that you would speak to them ever so gently. You'd look into their eyes and you'd call them out for who they really are in all of their beauty. And we thank you for these things in your name. Amen. I'll invite the worship team up.